Hey guys, it's Jack. I wanted to let you know that we're starting a new push for subscriptions here on Human Events Daily. So make sure that when you're listening to this podcast, you hit subscribe, you download it, and you share it with 5 of your friends. Make sure they're all going and downloading as well, because we need to get the signal out as much as possible. Look, we've done so much over the past couple of years since this show started, and we're only going to do so much more. Let's get it. This is what happens when the fourth turning meets fifth generation warfare.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is king.
Less than 24 hours after President Trump declared that the deal with Iran was going well,
Iran is being very nice. They're agreeing to everything that I want.
Today, U.S. officials tell ABC News Iran attacked a cargo ship attempting to cross the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has imposed new conditions forbidding ships from traveling outside of its approved shipping lanes.
Well, Secretary of War Hegseth just got a live demonstration of directed energy weapons. He says the Pentagon intends to buy tens to hundreds of these in the coming years. It's the first known viewing of a directed energy weapon demonstration by a sitting War Secretary. So what are they? Directed energy weapons fire concentrated energy at the speed of light. And for years, intelligence officials working abroad have reported brain injuries known as Havana syndrome.
A number of Supreme Court rulings coming down this morning, one that clears the way for the Trump administration to limit how many migrants could apply for asylum each day as the U.S.-Mexico border. The practice known as metering was used during both the Obama and first Trump administrations. Supporters say it helped manage large numbers of asylum seekers, while critics argue it left thousands of migrants waiting in unsafe conditions. The policy is not currently in effect, but the 6-3 ruling allows the administration to consider bringing it back. The Supreme Court also allowing the administration to end temporary legal protections for migrants from Haiti and Syria. This opens the door to possible deportations for hundreds of thousands of people.
In 2 federal courts yesterday, a group of protesters received unusually long sentences after the Justice Department accused them of being members of the far-left movement Antifa. The sentences range from 30 to 100 years in prison.
Breaking news, a judge has just declared a mistrial in the Palisades federal arson case. This is big news.
Judge Graff just found one of the Utah County prosecutors, Chris Ballard, in contempt for violating the court's pretrial publicity order. Now, Tyler Robinson's defense was asking for the death penalty to be removed from the case as punishment, but Judge Graff declined, saying it's grossly misproportionate to the misconduct.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily. Today is June 26, 2026, Anno Domini. Well, folks, it seems that arson is now legal in Los Angeles. You can burn down the entire Palisades, and you will not be found guilty by a jury of your communist peers. What's going on here? Well, you know that we have been covering this story, one of the only outlets in all of media actually covering this story on a day-to-day basis, certainly in conservative media, because for some reason conservatives just don't want to talk about left-wing violence as much as they should, and actually carrying out these trials and covering the trials all the way to the bitter end. Well, in this case, the end is quite bitter, because what do we see? We see a trial that has now become a mistrial. An obviously guilty individual, Jonathan Rinderknecht, an Uber driver who was found to have lit the Palisades Fire. He lit one fire, which then was not put out properly, which then ignited a secondary, larger fire that burned down the entire Pacific Palisades. They had the evidence, and we've gone through the evidence with you here on the program over and over and over, because our crack team at Human Events Daily has been digging through all of this for you. What have we found? Well, we found that his cell phone was there. He was the only person on the specific trail where the fire started at that specific time. They found evidence of fire starter. They even found ChatGPT chat logs where he was going through and looking up images, creating images of the Pacific Palisades burning down. He's also a known firebug who had other incidents of burning down fires in the past. And, of course, perhaps most disturbingly, he would spend his Uber drives, and if you go and look up his rating on Uber, that his Uber rider said that he would be ranting and raving about Luigi Maggioni and saying that somebody needs to do something to the rich. Somebody needs to do something, because he was obsessed with Luigi Maggioni and would talk about Maggioni to anyone who would listen while riding in the back of his Uber. It didn't matter who they were, but he would rant and rave about Maggioni, and he would become fixated on doing something like Maggioni did. And so he did. He burned down the Palisades. And what just happened? A little something called jury nullification. And in jury nullification, that's when jurors come up and say, yeah, we see the evidence. We see everything that points to this suspect as being the one who did it. It's pretty clear, pretty cut and dry. But we're going to let him off anyway. Now, LA, of course, is infamous for this in the O.J. Simpson case, where O.J. Simpson very clearly cut his wife's head off and killed a waiter named Ron Goldman, but the jury let him off. And jurors later said, we didn't want to be on the side of the police the same way that Rodney King's police officers had been let off. So we were going to let O.J. off as revenge for Rodney King. Now, if that doesn't make any sense to you, that's because it doesn't make any rational sense. There's no connection there whatsoever. Unless you view things through the lens of leftism, unless you view things through the lens of tribalism. And in this case, you have one tribe, the tribe of the communists, helping their fellow communist get off and get away with murder. 10 jurors refused to find him guilty. 2 people looked at this and said, yeah, the evidence is obvious. And they refused to change their vote. So God bless those 2 jurors, at least, because LA can bring these charges and should bring them again. And actually, the federal government needs to bring them again. Right back, Jack Posobiec with more Will Chamberlain.
Nothing will stand in our way, and our golden age has just begun.
This is Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
Now it's time for everyone to understand what America First truly means. Welcome to the Second American Revolution.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec. We are back live, Human Events Daily, and we are here covering all of this, everything that's come down. We need to understand what's happening. And of course, we need to also support our partners, like our good friends over at Allegiance Gold. And folks, right now, the headlines, let me tell you something. We know they're starting to feel calm. Things are calming down. Tensions are simmering, but they are quieting. At the same time, the oil is easing. Markets are reacting positively. With the temporary Iran deal, everyone's starting to exhale. When oil prices spiked, though, the dollar strengthened, and that pulled gold and silver back from their record highs. These are the exact calm moments that I start paying closer attention, not less. Because here's what I've learned. The biggest headlines change when opportunities show up and everyone gets comfortable. The markets then change, and the thing that nobody's worried about today becomes and has a way of becoming tomorrow's headline. That's one of the reasons that my wife, Tanya Tay, and I became clients of Allegiance Gold, because we treat protecting what we've built as seriously as we treat building it. With gold and silver off their highs, the folks who've been waiting on the sidelines may have a window worth a closer look. If you've worked hard for your savings and your family's future, don't wait until everyone's rushing back to pay attention. Find out how you can move a portion of your 401k or IRA into gold, or put physical gold and silver directly in your hands. Ship discreetly straight to your door. Call 844-577-7676 or go to protectwithposo.com and claim your free wealth protection guide. Lays out what the herd tends to miss. If you qualify, you may be eligible for up to $5,000 in free gold or silver on a qualifying investment. Again, that's protectwithposo.com, or give them a call, 844-577-7676. All right, very excited. I should say, I'm glad we have this guest on to go through it. I belay my last, though, because I am not excited to have him on about this subject. Will Chamberlain is on from the Article 3 Project to discuss what I believe is jury nullification in Los Angeles. Will, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you.
Will, walk me out the ledge. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this looks like it looked to me like a clear-cut case that this was the guy. They had the evidence. They had him. They had the motive. They had the intent. He had the intent. He had what do they call it? The motive, the means, and the opportunity to conduct this. He was there. They connected it right back to him. They found the ChatGPT logs on his phone. Seems good to go. And yet 10 jurors in Los Angeles said, we're not going to find him guilty. Whereas two looked at it and said, he's obviously guilty. He's clearly guilty. All the evidence points directly to him. Will, what are we to make of this?
I'm skeptical of your take, Jack. I think my guess is something went on at trial. Because and the reason I say that is 10 jurors voted to acquit. And so that doesn't mean he's not guilty. I'm almost certain he's guilty. But what that suggests to me is there may have been an issue at trial in terms of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Like my understanding of the proof is that there is some amount of it's like reasonably circumstantial. They're like trying to place him at the spot, but he was never seen to actually like light the match. And so that's where you might have two jurors who are like, yeah, but the overwhelming amount of other proof really does demonstrate that he really did it. And maybe 10 jurors just thought, maybe it wasn't him. Like,
see, to me, that kind of seems like that kind of also sounds a little bit like the, we've talked about the CSI effect on juries in the past, but, what we might say today is the cell phone effect, right? Because we live in a world where there's so much cell phone footage of seemingly everything that happens and every crime that now suddenly when you have a crime where there is no footage, either on a cell phone or closed circuit TV, because this was, of course, out on some trail up in the wilderness. They said, well, if we don't see it on video, we don't know if we can vote guilty. And that's just me speculating, though. But it is something that I've wondered about because, you go back to things like George Floyd, Kyle Rittenhouse, and it's all Daniel Penny. Everything is on video. Yeah, Carmelo Anthony is on video. Mm-hmm. And yet to see something without video is actually beyond the norm now.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it would be hard to, even in Los Angeles, which is full of some weird people, it would be hard to find 10 jurors out of a jury with 10 jurors out of 12 who would believe that the guy did it beyond a reasonable doubt and still vote to acquit a guy who burned down the Pacific Palisades. I can't get, you might find one or two crazy people like that, but 10 out of 12, I lean strongly towards thinking that at least a good chunk of these people acquitted in good faith, and not necessarily because they thought the guy was innocent, but there could have been problems at trial. I'm as a good defense lawyer, if there was no video of this guy lighting the match and setting it on fire, there's a lot you can do with that. There's stuff you have to explain away, but if you can come up with some sort of alternate explanation or hammer home that they just don't have the proof, they can't put the match in the guy's hand. That's what they cannot do. And if they can't do that, you must acquit. Like I could see using a strategy like that and obtaining a mistrial.
Well, at one point, I know I'm throwing this at you. The defense attorney, Steve Haney, requested an Allen charge, also commonly known as a dynamite charge or a hammer charge. Can you are you familiar with that? Can you walk us through that term of art?
Yeah. My understanding of the Allen charge is that it's a way for the judge to make a really forceful instruction to the jury to try and get them to unanimity.
Hey guys, I think we're getting a little bit of lag with Will. Let's try to reconnect that real quick here. Something's up with the connection, but yeah. So this charge that the jurors have been deliberating pretty much all week, and they weren't sure, what was going on. We weren't sure. We, of course, were on jury watch, verdict watch, waiting for this to come down. And what we ended up seeing here was this final last-ditch effort to force an agreement. And when that did not occur, the judge asked each juror whether it was impossible to come to a unanimous decision on the charges. Each member of the jury replied, yes, it was not possible to come out. And Prosecutors argued that he intentionally maliciously started the fire called the Lockman Fire, which smoldered for several days, which later then became the giant Palisades Fire 6 days later. They have him climbing up the hill. They have the anger, the rich losers kind of statements, the things that were all done. And Haney claimed that there was insufficient evidence. And we're still waiting to see exactly, if any of the jurors do speak out after this. And, if they say anything, say anything different about why it was that they were unable to come to this. And to me, I have to say, in an area that's known for this, I'm going to put at least some, belief in this idea that perhaps, just perhaps, this could be jury nullification on this. Guys, how are we working on? Do we have Will back? Okay, so Will is reconnecting right now as we speak. So just going through a little bit more. Jonathan Rinderknecht. Now, this was 3 federal counts. He was not charged, if you recall, was not charged with murder. So there were multiple deaths that occurred, and none of those were charged for him. They were trying to only charge him for, and I believe they could add more later, and I believe they should personally. But again, this is going to become a real trial. This is going to be, again, upset about a relationship where he had broken up. He was fixated on wealth disparity and climate change. He wanted revenge against society for his problems in his life. He was fixated on Luigi Maggioni. He had used terms in ChatGPT like free Luigi Maggioni, let's take down all the billionaires, Reddit, let's kill all the billionaires. That's his statement. That's not my statement. And he ended up working on December 31st, 2024, because he had no plans to celebrate New Year's Eve. And they allege that he used a Bic lighter to light the fire, which they found was not caused by lightning, fireworks, or power lines. Waiting to hear more about what specifically this came out. Will, do we have you again? Can we try that again?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Will.
Yep.
So yeah, just 2 minutes till break, but Will, walk us through, set aside what exactly caused the mistrial. What moves are available now to prosecutors?
No, they just got to bring a new trial and think about what they did, what was insufficiently proved in their view. I think that there's probably, the prosecutors are going to want to bring this case again because they think he did it, but they're going to have to think through why they managed to lose 10 jurors here. That's where I'd start with them. I wouldn't just assume this is jury nullification. I'd assume that they did not persuade a sufficient number of jurors who were acting in good faith.
And indeed, because they had 8 hours of video where he was with an ATF agent and they walked through the scene of the crime. They walked through video of him talking about it. Specifically, Rinderknecht even asked at one point, do you think someone might have started this fire in the Palisades if they were frustrated with inequality, and specifically targeted because they wanted revenge on society? So, I can certainly understand why the prosecutors would zero in on the guy who was at this place at the time, who was ranting and raving about the inequality in society. But to your point, yes, they are going to need to find more. But I'm going to say, you gotta watch your voir dire as well, because sometimes the trial can just come down to that. Jack Posobiec, Will Chamberlain. We've got a number of legal cases we're going to be walking through. Human Events Daily continues.
They talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, who's done a great job.
All right, folks. Jack Posobiec back live. Human Events Daily, Real America's voice, and we're here with Will Chamberlain. He's on from the Article 3 Project. Now, we just talked about the LA case where a mistrial was declared in the LA arson case. Now I want to jump over to the Tyler Robinson case. But first, I do want to say thank you so much to our partners. I want to say thank you to the people that give us the opportunity to be able to talk about these stories and have this freedom of speech, to be able to share this with all of you again and again. And one of those sponsors is the Wellness Company. So if those who, so let me ask you a question. What if those who were once called conspiracy theorists turned out to be right again? Well, a new study that's out by Korean doctors claimed that COVID vaccines raise the risk of six cancers, including lung, breast, and prostate. Researchers analyzed health records from more than 8.4 million adults between 2021 and 2023, and their findings were published in Biomarker Research, a respected scientific journal. Critics dismiss it, but the data raises concerns that spike protein exposure may be tied to long-term health risks. Dr. Peter McCullough has been aware of this since 2020, which is why he collaborated with the Wellness Company to develop Ultimate Spike Detox, designed to help your body clear spike proteins, reduce inflammation, and support heart health. Natural ingredients like nattokinase, dandelion root, and bromelain, it's your daily proactive defense from a man-made virus. Don't wait until symptoms strike or something unexpected happens. Experience the only formula approved and used by Dr. McCullough, one of the top doctors who risked it all. Head over to twc.health/POSO and use promo code POSO to get 10% off plus free shipping. Again, that's twc.health/POSO and use promo code POSO to get 10% off. Get back to that pre-COVID feeling. So, Will Chamberlain, this is the huge story that came up regarding Tyler Robinson. Of course, we've been covering that case, and this piece I really wanted to get in with you because it's definitely something, obviously for all of us, that we've all been following closely. A prosecutor was held in contempt today regarding a violation of the gag order because of his statement to TMZ regarding what he believed was misinformation. I would agree was misinformation about a ballistics report that came out in the case. The judge said that he thought that the prosecutor's statement went too far and is effectively imposing a fine on him for this statement. Will, can you walk us through sort of just what are all the machinations here? Why is the gag order in place, and why did he view this statement as violating it?
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah. So the statements were about like the strength of the evidence in the case. Prosecutors aren't allowed to talk about that because it prejudices a potential jury pool. The remedy, as discussed, I think the defense asked for them to knock out the death penalty charge. The judge dismissed that out of hand, said that's ridiculous. The remedy is going to be questions at voir dire to cure the contempt. So the idea being that, in addition, there will be some questions about, did you read this particular reporting or did you see any statements from the prosecutors? Something to that effect. And you'll do that so that it'll be easier for prosecutors for the defense to weed out any jurors who might have heard the prejudicial statements.
So in this case, though, if the prosecutor, and I read the statement, the prosecutor's statement was that, so the first statement was that it was a clarification on what the ballistics report actually said in the Tyler Robinson case. And that clarification was that in response to this sort of TMZ / Daily Mail headline, and TMZ had sort of like reblogged it, repackaged it, saying that, Tyler Robinson's gun, erroneously stating that it had been discounted from the potential bullets that were found in Charlie's autopsy. And what the prosecutor was coming back and correcting was to say, no, that's not what was found. What was found was that the class of gun was included, but because it had fragmented, they couldn't connect it directly to his specific rifle, but they could connect it to that class of rifle. I'm just trying to put this in sort of normie terms here rather than go full ballistics gun nerd on everybody. But point being was that was the clarification. But then there was another line where he said, we believe that we have ample evidence and strong evidence that will prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that Tyler Robinson is guilty. So was that the part that the judge was zeroing in on here? He said that part he felt went beyond the simple clarification.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's my understanding, at least, that it was that latter statement that created the contempt issue. But I don't know. It also might have been the first statement. It's one of I didn't actually listen to the whole hearing. I just saw some rumblings about that specific point on social media. In any event, I don't, this won't be a big deal for the broader trial. It'll mean that might have some slight impact on jury selection, but that's about it.
What kind of impact would it have on jury selection?
Well, it just means that, the judge would ensure that jurors are asked specific questions about these things, written questions. And so it might weed out some jurors who are familiar with the statements.
Okay, so if anyone had heard the statement at all, then perhaps the defense team could say, well, if you heard that statement, you should be stricken. And the judge, could potentially be bound by, this precedent, basically, that's prejudicial.
Yeah, that's the right way to think about it.
So, okay, that's interesting. So had anyone heard that? Now, that being said, though, I would say that that if that's true, then what they should also do, if I were the prosecutors, if I'm playing that role, I would say, well, if that's the case, then we should also hold that if you saw that TMZ headline or that Daily Mail headline, that would also be prejudicial, because you're saying that you took a headline that was clearly erroneous. And I think that was viewed way, way more time, just like anything else, was viewed way more times than the clarification. So you'd think, I certainly hope that the prosecutors use that line to sort of push back, as talk about, again, jury selection, that, hey, if one is prejudicial, they should both be prejudicial.
Yeah, and I think that would be true regardless. I mean, obviously, part of the jury selection process is figuring out whether people are unnecessarily, biased or too aware of the facts in the case, and that can lead to being struck for cause. So, that's I think prosecutors would be doing that anyway, given the existence of this TMZ article. So I don't know if it's going to be like a tit for tat, where it's like, oh, you get to exclude somebody, we get to exclude somebody, but rather that, this is something that they just do anyway.
We will see. Jack Posobiec, Will Chamberlain, right back. Human Events Daily.
And Jack, where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. We have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. I want to get on here now and remind everyone that America is hitting 250 years. And we're fighting for its soul right now. Culture, economy, who gets your dollar? That's the battle. Most wireless companies don't care what you stand for. They just want your cash. But Patriot Mobile is different. For more than 12 years, they've stood with Americans like us, backing the Christian conservative movement when everyone else stayed silent or worse. And here's the deal. You don't have to give up quality or service when you switch to Patriot Mobile. They deliver premium priority access on all 3 major U.S. networks, so you'll get the same coverage or better than you have today. Think switching is a hassle? It isn't. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their 100% U.S.-based customer support team can activate you in minutes. Still paying off a device? Patriot Mobile even offers a contract buyout. This is a defining year. We're in a fight for America's soul. We must work together to save our country. Go to patriotmobile.com/POSO or call 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code POSO for a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/POSO or call them 972-PATRIOT. Make the switch today. All right, I want to get on with Will Chamberlain again here a little bit to explain to us, why does this all matter so much? What is what are the differences between this case and the other cases? And so, Will, when we're talking about little things like, oh, does this prejudice a juror? Does that prejudice a juror? Will this come up? I mean, take what we were talking about before, the 10 and 2 jurors of the LA case, and now say, hey, this really does come down to 12 people in a room deciding what someone's guilt or innocence is. And in the case of a death penalty case, death penalty trial, then they will also be asked in a separate session whether or not that person should be put to death. And so the composition of those 12 is actually extremely important because they really do hold this decision in their hands. So when people think, oh, this is kind of a dry, what does it matter if someone saw the TMZ article or someone saw the statement or the Daily Mail? Why does it matter? Because it determines the people who determine everything. Walk us through that a little bit.
Right. Well, I mean, it's, everybody's entitled to a fair trial, and we understand a fair trial to be one where the decision is made, the guilt is adjudicated based on admissible evidence only. Right, the evidence that's put to the jurors, not evidence from the wider world, not the internet, not what they might have read on some blog, and not something, they saw on some YouTube video, but the evidence they were actually presented at trial. And so that problem is an interesting problem, obviously, in any jury system. And different countries resolve it in different ways. I mean, we can go all the way back to, why was Tommy Robinson tossed in jail for contempt in court 6-7 years ago, something like that. I'm actually probably closer to 10 now than I think about it. I'm getting old. But why was he tossed in jail? Well, the British do something different than we do. When we have a high profile trial where we want to keep the trial process pristine, we'll sometimes do things like sequester jurors, or we'll give them very strong instructions not to read what anybody says about the trial. In England, what they'll do is they'll put in place what's called a reporting restriction, where they will actually demand that reporters not talk about the trial and not talk about what they've seen until after the trial is over. But all these are mechanisms to try and ensure that the trial process is fair from the perspective of the system. And so that's what's going on here, right? The whole point of prohibiting out-of-court discussions of the case by prosecutors is to preserve the fairness of the trial. To the extent that that wasn't done, they're going to try and cure that problem through how they do their jury selection.
And so this is key. This is absolutely key. So any of these pieces that come up, you are going to find and shape the composition of that jury based on all of these little things. And by the way, we haven't even gotten yet to the fights over which evidence will be admissible and which is inadmissible, because we haven't even made it past the preliminary hearing yet. But that will be the next phase of this as this trial hurtles towards its eventual conclusion. And so, Will, when we talk about all this, the reason that it seems that it's going so much slower, we had the Pacific Palisades Fire trial took place, but even then, that was a year and a half ago, and here we are, just today finding a mistrial in that. So that took 18 months, give or take. So it was New Year's Eve. Now it's June. Then you had other trials like Carmelo Anthony or Henry Novak in the UK system, which seemed to take place in relatively faster time. Is one of those differences because a death penalty trial just requires many more steps, and that everyone goes through their steps, like the judge here with his ruling today, knowing that it will, in years to come, be gone over with a fine-tooth comb?
Maybe. I think it's probably more about the volume of evidence, of relevant evidence, and therefore the process of actually assembling it, bringing a case, and dealing with all the counter evidence. This is, the Kirk assassination. Obviously, there's just an enormous amount of different video evidence of the happening, and all the evidence related to how Tyler Robinson was apprehended, all the physical evidence that we're talking about. So it might have just been bigger. This also might be a function of the differences in legal systems, right? Like how, the UK might be more efficient in its criminal prosecutions than we are. That's something that's generally true of their legal system. They tend to be a little bit less paperwork heavy. So, these things can take longer or shorter amounts of time for a variety of reasons. I wouldn't necessarily say there's any particular focus because it's a death penalty case. I think you can have fast death penalty cases if the evidence is kind of clear and discrete. Here, there's just a lot to go through. I think that's probably what's making this kind of a more prolonged process.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and certainly either way, we do know that there is going to be just so many, and this is something that I've had to say to numerous people, that, if you don't look at these things, a death penalty case is something that is going to live on and on and on and on, because we know that there will be appeals filed, that it could go all the way to the United States Supreme Court. I think of the Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the Boston bomber. He's still on death row right now. And that was 13 years ago when he placed a bomb in front of a 5-year-old child and blew him up at the, near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. That was April of 2013. And he is still on death row. His death penalty was rescinded at one point, but it was later reimposed. I've kind of go back and forth following that. And I believe his is federal as well. And so, you do need a Republican president to actually administer one of those. That is something that a Democrat president will not do. So you've only had the first 4 years of President Trump, and now the second 4 years of President Trump, where it could have been actually carried out. And so what I mean to say, though, is that the system can be very, very long and arduous. Now, at the same time, in a place like Utah at the state level, that is a place where it's known for actually being carried out quite a bit more, similar to the UK court, I guess, where the process is generally a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah, so I want to clarify a distinction. Death penalty stuff is obviously going to take longer in terms of post-trial proceedings and the actual carrying out of the death sentence. Like, even for Tyler Robinson, we're talking, at least I would suspect it'd be.
Yeah. I meant post-trial. I meant post-trial.
Yeah, so we're probably looking at 10 years of post-trial litigation is what I would suspect in the Robinson case, and that's just the product of how our death penalty jurisprudence works. I don't think that's a good thing. I think our Supreme Court's really mucked it up and made it much harder to execute criminals convicted of murder than it should be, especially in cases where the death penalty is in fact imposed. It just takes so long, and justice delayed and justice denied, in my view. But yeah, that certainly will happen. But I guess the distinction that's important is to realize that doesn't necessarily apply in the trial context, where the length of the trial, the death penalty is going to be a component of that.
Yeah, you're right. I should clarify that. Two separate things. I mean, my gosh, I'm pulling up a few things here, and it kind of depends. It's sort of, so since 1976, since it's been I'm just pulling from Wikipedia here. So, since it has been reinstated, it doesn't give me the exact offense. So the last person to be executed was a Native American. They were executed in 2024 for a rape and murder that took place in 1998. So there you go, almost 30 years of a delta in between. So I mean, these are things that do take their time. And to your point, Will, I do believe also that justice delayed is justice denied. That was lethal injection. But the one before that in 2010, Ronnie Lee Gardner, that was firing squad. So Utah does still have the firing squad. That was 2010.
And we should keep using it. Everybody should be using the 1980s.
Give Will Chamberlain a follow, the Article 3 Project as well, at Will Chamberlain. Jack Posobiec right back for your segment here at Human Events Daily.
The Jack Posobiec Appreciation Hour. I can say confidently, I think Josh Shapiro would be the vice presidential nominee if it wasn't for Jack Posobiec. And that is, I'll be honest.
To the ground, and that's a hand to the neck, and then.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live here, Human Events Daily. And we are in our Friday segment, our question of the day. Remember, on Fridays, you are the guest. And so I'm going to be popping in here to the chat as well on Rumble and on Getter. Might check out the X chat as well. For some of you guys, you may have noticed that my son was on the X chat a couple of days ago here on the program. And so he actually hopped on. But today our question is about Caitlyn Clark. Are the hit to Caitlyn Clark's throat and the mocking of her examples of anti-white hate? Email at 1776@humanevents.com. And if you hadn't seen the hit to the hit, not just the hit to the throat, but also which we can see right here, and we know that she's faced a number of incidents like this since joining the WNBA, which to my mind absolutely seem to be anti-white. I do want to hear what you guys think of this, but also that there was a meme posted by the Phoenix WNBA team, which I didn't even know existed, making fun of her. Do you want a piece of this? Mocking her for being on the ground and being assaulted by that individual. And so this is obviously something that would be, I mean, we could all imagine what would happen if that were George Floyd and someone had posted an NBA or someone else had posted something like that. So let me go to your emails. Again, 1776@humanevents.com. This one's in from Sadie. It is absolutely anti-white. The perpetrator should be permanently banned from the WNBA or whatever league that was. This one's in from Alan. Yes, they are. We've also seen numerous other worse examples of the danger whites are in. They won't stop until they're stopped. Whites need to start showing courage and consciousness before they finally stand up for themselves or other whites. Aaron says, yes, Caitlyn Clark did the one thing that none of the other players ever do. She brought value to the WNBA, and the other players hate that a white person achieved that when the NBA is the opposite. Stephanie says, yes, yes, yes. Penny, the hits to Caitlyn are definitely white hate racism. The WNBA must take action against these actions. As much as I like Caitlyn and support the WNBA, I cannot watch the WNBA when it's not basketball. It's pure hateful violence. A one-game suspension does not slice the problem. No, it absolutely does not. One anonymous, she should quit before they paralyze her. Definitely white hatred. This one in from Margaret. An example of hatred towards and intolerance of the white race, the Christian faith, heterosexuality. Can Caitlyn sue for assault? Well, she certainly could. This one in from Corey. Yes, and I'm tired of pretending it's not. One in from Epsilon says, if she doesn't sue or press charges, it's an example of suicidal empathy. This one in from Sandra. Because Born Free 1123, because she's a beautiful straight woman is a problem in the WNBA. She should file assault charges. There's no room for this. One in from Sensei Blaze. Thank you. Caitlyn Clark has been targeted because she is white. She constantly faces assaults, and the league goes silent. Her eye was poked. Her face was hit. She was knocked down, scratched, shoved, attempted stomping, you name it. Sophie Cunningham is the only help she's got. It's enough. And we've got many, many, many more here. Someone, this one in from DT Davis, says, if she were a lesbian, she wouldn't nearly get the hate that she does. It's the combination. Interesting point. Interesting point there. Oh, my gosh. Bird Cheat writes, good thing she didn't die of a fentanyl overdose, or that woman pushing her fist into Caitlyn's neck would go to prison for murder. Wonder what that could be referring to. I have no idea. Check this out. We got Super Fest on X. I think the WNBA is an utter disgrace. Let's go over here to Rumble. Joe VX700. So when do we remove the commie mayors? Terry Lee's sound keeps going out. Well, I hope the sound is working good for us. Hopefully not. Let's see. Someone says, wishing everyone a happy Independence Day. We're early, but you know what? I will take it. We must be Independence Day maxing. Let's see. What else? Okay. Sparky Glenn, 1962. Where are her teammates defending her? That's a great point. Sacagawea writes, where the heck are the referees? Big Mac 270 says fatigue. 13K Woods, I don't think it's racism, but it's serious jealousy. WNBA leaders practicing racism by not holding the other girls responsible. They're pulling a UK-EU weak response, fear of being called racist. Dale Ross says, hi, Jack. What's up, Dale? Ntayo says, pure evil. Sacagawea writes again, last I knew, basketball doesn't encompass UFC fighting. Yeah, I know, right? 1769, but they allow this. The referees and coaches sue them also. Raider 208, they hate her because she kicks their butt nightly. Yeah, that's exactly what it's all about. Sue K writes, suspension for the season would be proper. I agree with that. Let's see. That's should not be tolerated. Suspended. A lot of people are saying that. Okay, let's go over to Getter. Watchman writes, anti-white assault clearly wrong. The WNBA is racist. Trisha writes in, yep, racist. They hate her because she's a better player than most of them. Mr. Sunshine, no transgenders in sports. I don't know if anyone involved in this was trans, but if someone was, please let me know, because I do not keep track of such things. And with the WNBA, what can I say? Dare I misgender a WNBA player just because you're playing for the Women's National Basketball Association? Dare I believe or assume to believe that that means that you were born a biological woman? Far be it from me. Mr. Sunshine adds, we need gender tests for the WNBA. Ducks says suspension for the season. Scotty Reddy says burkas for the WNBA. Oh, come on. Burkas in the WNBA, that would be even worse. Remove all reason to play whatsoever. This won't stop. Jay Withrow says it won't stop until the penalties are severe enough. No, that's exactly right. A one game penalty is just not long enough to be able to prevent stuff like this. It's a slap on the wrist. It's a slap on the wrist, and everyone knows it. All right. Oh, getting some more emails in. Popping over back to the email, 1776@humanevents.com, 1776@humanevents.com. Let's see. Clearly on purpose, clearly a hate crime. That's from Jennifer. Robert Russell says we've become acclimated to see it all as entertainment. We ask for civility in an uncivilized segment of society. Profit and publicity. Thank you, Lord, for President Trump. I might also thank you, Jack. Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. It was a nice message. Let's see. One from Jessica. Watching the show and typing a quick response. The attack against Caitlyn Clark is disgusting and despicable. That players should be benched or removed from the team. Not at all okay. I think I saw someone post at one point that she shouldn't be allowed to fly on the jet anymore, that she should have to fly commercial for the rest of the season. I think that'd be good, too. Cheryl, Caitlyn Clark should resign and sue the league for assault and physical abuse. Vicky, she is being abused in the name of white hate. This needs to stop. What did we white people do to deserve this? There has to be something done about this. Those people need to be tried in court and get put in prison for assault. Dolph writes in, another prime example of anti-white hate should be kicked out of the league forever. Well, you guys are fired up about this. I love this. Ricky says DOJ civil rights investigation. I believe there is one. I believe Harmeet Dillon, if I remember correctly, had said that she's going to be looking into it, and I certainly hope that she is, because she's tough as nails and she's going to get to the bottom of whatever it is. That's what Harmeet Dillon does. That's why I support Harmeet Dillon. Barb says, as much as I hate to say it, I believe it is. They seem to hate that a straight white woman could be a better athlete than them, and that's it. Got this last one in from, from Lonnie. Says that's assault and battery, that she should be indicted for criminal assault and battery. It's okay to have her fist on her throat. So black on white crime is okay. You got Chauvin sitting in prison for supposed white on black crime. So white on black is criminal beyond belief. Carmelo Anthony, et cetera, et cetera. Guys, great comments. Love everybody getting active like this. I love spending these Fridays with all of you. Have a great weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.